Shabbat Shalom. Last week, we learned about Moses' birth. But the truth is that our redemption began even before the Torah tells us about the birth of Moses. You see, in the very first chapter of Exodus, of the book of Shemot, Pharaoh commands 2 midwives to kill all of the Jewish baby boys and allow the baby girls to live. Do the midwives obey the command? The Torah tells us, "Vatir'ena hamyaladot et ha'Elohim v'lo asu ka'asher diber alehem melech Mitzrayim v'techyena et hayeladim." The midwives feared God, were in awe of God, and they did not act according to Pharaoh's decree. These women, these midwives, who have the ability to grant life or cement the decree of death, and in spite of the decree, in spite of the crumbling morality all around them, they choose to continue giving life. This moment is the beginning of our redemption. From amidst our own suffering, our own slavery, the Jewish people found a way to remain mindful of God and not hurt one another by complying with Pharaoh's orders. And where did this Jewish strength begin? Where did our core freedom narrative emanate from? From women. And according to Rashi, these 2 women, called Shifra and Pua in the text of the Torah, are actually names for Yocheved and Miriam. This should be of no surprise to us. Jewish women have always staked a claim to protect our Jewish future. Jewish women have always chosen life and godliness no matter what society we inhabited. That very notion of the ability of Jewish women to protect our future is what we're celebrating today at Women's League Torah Fund Shabbat. The Torah Fund is an amazing cause that's helped give rabbinical students around the world the ability to study Torah. And by helping future rabbis, congregational rabbis, counselors, chaplains, teachers, and otherwise, by helping people study our tradition and perpetuate it, you are helping create a more robust Jewish future. Just as the Torah presents us, the Jewish people, with 2 women in particular who go out of their way to protect and preserve their Jewish community, so too do we today honor 2 women in particular who do the same for this community. Miriam Hearn and Henny Gordon. I first met Miriam and Henny about 18 months ago. I remember calling all of the board members and asking to meet for a cup of coffee as soon as I was named the rabbinic intern here at Adat Shalom. I spoke to Miriam and asked her to meet me for coffee. She told me that Henny should really be there as well. I'm 100% confident today that had I spoken with Henny first, she would have told me that Miriam should really be there as well. There was a similar tone for every coffee I had that month. I would ask the Adat Shalom board member to tell me about themselves and about the community and about what brought them here. Before I could steer the conversation in that direction, Miriam and Henny said to me, almost in unison, "What can we do to help you, Rabbi? We want you to be successful." I was taken aback, not because of the sentiment. Many had expressed to me in one way or another their hopes for my success here. But I was surprised by their strength, by their boldness, by their sense of loyalty to and responsibility for our community of Adat Shalom. I don't have to recap their bios since they're printed in the Torah Fund cards here, but I will note that their co-presidency of Women's League is not the first time they've taken part in leadership in our community. Miriam and Fred, whose memory should always be a blessing, have been integral members of Adat Shalom for decades. You are married here. As has been Henny and John, integral members of our community, and John's memory should always be a blessing as well. In addition to their collective strength, each one brings particular interests into our community. Miriam helped lead the marketing effort that rebranded much of our communication materials. She always has an eye for increasing our PR, and I always appreciate her suggestions. We share those interests, and you bring so much passion to the work we do. Miriam has a sense about her in which she pays attention to how we are portrayed and how we are perceived in the greater LA Jewish community. Much like her namesake, Moses' sister Miriam, even while the synagogue seemingly floated in the water, Miriam spent so much of her life watching out from the banks of the river over Adat Shalom. She's made sure that nothing would happen to our community and to the Women's League that I know you love so much. Henny and I share the connection of your late husband, John, who I mentioned before. I never knew John, and Henny, you never knew my grandparents. But when we speak about survivors and the Shoah and keeping their memories alive and the past, I always feel like I'm speaking with my family when I speak with you. Henny gave me an incredibly personal gift this past year, a book of child survivor stories of the Holocaust. And in it, John Gordon has a chapter of his own. And when I read it, I could feel myself getting to know both you and John a little bit better. Henny's namesake is Samuel's mother, Hannah. The rabbis of the Talmud point to Hannah's prayer at the beginning of the first book of Samuel as the model of prayer which we try to emulate even today. Last year, after the beginning of my internship, I lost my voice, and Henny protected my prayers here in the sanctuary by having new microphones installed and upgrading the sound system. Thank you for watching over all of our prayers, Henny. The truth is that in the Torah, the Jewish people never get a chance to thank Shifra and Puah, the midwives who refused to enact Pharaoh's decree. The Jewish people never publicly thank and acknowledge their protection of our future. But the Torah tells us, Vayetev Elohim lemyaladot, Vayirev ha'am v'yatzmu me'od, Vayihi ki yaru hamyaladot et Elohim v'yas lehem batim. And God made goodness for the midwives, and the Jewish people multiplied and increased greatly. And because the midwives were in fear, had such awe for God, God established for each one of them households. We are blessed as a community to have two strong women looking out for us in such a loving way. And I'm glad that we have the ability today to publicly thank each of you for everything that you do and for everything that you and your husbands have done for our community over the years, and to honor you both and to attempt to show you how much you both mean to us. I use the words of the Torah, and I pray that your attributes emanate throughout each of your households and throughout our community, and we all learn to continue to the tradition to protect the future of the Jewish people, to support Women's League and Torah Fund, and to continue to take steps to protect our Jewish tradition going forward here at Adat Shalom and around the world. And let us say, Amen.